3,402 people died on 0 day.
Absolute nationwide terror.
Computer systems completely hijacked.
A significant number of casualties.
Every phone in America displayed the same haunting message. This will happen again.
Mullen, thanks for coming.
Madam President, so what's the plan?
Congress is authorizing a special 0-day commission, hunting down anyone who aided and abetted this horrific attack.
You're just gonna grab people off the streets without warrants.
Actually, you are.
This is the greatest affront to civil liberties ever attempted.
Ex-President George Mullen is not only a wannabe tyrant, he's a deeply troubled man. I'm on to you, Georgie.
Sir, is there something going on here that you're not telling me about?
Prove to me you are of sound mind, or I will tell the country that you are not.
If the mob storms the castle and comes for all of our heads, everyone's gonna be in trouble.
Do you think he's being set up?
Another attack could happen at any moment.
I'm worried that you don't have this under control.
But I run this investigation, not the White House, not the CIA.
If the public finds out how deep this really is, I don't think we survive that.
And isn't that interesting, folks? I showed you on the last report a video that came out saying how terrible things would be if there was a blackout. What will we do without electricity? And now Netflix is releasing a new series which is basically about the same thing, only this time it's the terrible hackers. Yeah, and all this is happening right as Trump is wanting to roll out his new Project Stargate, which is all about mass surveillance and AI control of everything. Everything we've been predicting and warning you about for the last 10 or 15 years, it's all there in Operation Stargate. And it, of course, provides the need to bring in mass surveillance. But it's interesting that they put all this in place and then show you how terrible it would be if it got hacked. Which again, like I said, it creates the need for mass surveillance. So everyone's just going to go along with it. Now, everything Trump is rolling out is everything that we've been fighting against with this whole New World Order takeover. Like, he wants to annex Canada and Greenland, and now he's threatening Mexico. This is all the North American Union. I mean, 10 or 15 years ago, people would have been up in arms and protesting about this, but because Trump's doing it, they're all okay with it. The Trump cult has been an amazing thing to see, it really has. And he's just gone hell for leather. Like, as soon as he's come in, he's just written executive order after executive order. And he's just pushing the agenda. And he's making sure that things go the way they want them to go. Massive support for Israel. He's renewed all arms sales to Israel, taken off all restrictions. He's now sending them 2,000-pound bombs again. Israel is saying thank you for giving us the tools we need to defend ourselves.
Thank you, President Trump, for keeping your promise to give Israel the tools it needs to defend itself, to confront our common enemies, and to secure a future of peace and prosperity.
Right, so tools, 2,000-pound bombs are tools of self-defense. Of course, you need 2,000-pound bombs to fight back against an unarmed population held inside a walled-in enclosure that had just had 90% of their homes destroyed. It's crazy, and just trashing LA and trashing the United States the way they've done. The fires are still burning in LA, by the way, folks. The fires flared up again in Palisades. There's another fire, I think, in Hughes. And they're also having rainstorms there. I don't know how they're having fires and rainstorms, but they're having massive rainstorms as well, which is causing mudslides for the people in LA. Crazy, folks, absolutely crazy. But again, pushing this whole concept that there's going to be a blackout soon while they're pushing out Project Stargate, which is basically going to depend upon the system. It's going to depend on the internet, it's going to depend on the grid, the power grid, all that stuff working. So they put this fear into your mind that maybe it's going to stop working, the terrible hackers might do something. And so of course this is why we need mass surveillance. We need everybody tracked and traced. We need to know what everybody's doing, what everybody's thinking, so we can take steps to protect you. It's unreal, folks, just putting fear into the minds of people, the way they've done with the fires. You know, fear of climate change, fear of all this bullshit that they construct themselves. And it's interesting when you look at the statistics, you find that there's actually less fires now in the world, less fires starting up all over the world than there normally is. There's generally fires around the place, especially in summertime. But there's actually less fires around the world now than what there has been for the last few years. Only the reporting on fires has actually increased by 400%. So, you know, the media is playing a pretty big role in this, folks. The media is just keeping people in fear and is being used to justify the actions of these people, rolling out their surveillance state. And, you know, like I said, Project Stargate is everything we've been speaking out against for years. And there's Trump thinking he can just roll it out and it's all going to be good. Trump's just incredibly arrogant. It's amazing. They're deporting massive amounts of people from the United States at the moment. Trump has basically said there's 11 million people who need to be deported immediately from the United States. And he's closing off the borders and stuff. He's actually put military on the Mexican border. So he's down there with armor. And he's threatening Mexico and all sorts of stuff like that. He loaded up plane loads of immigrants and sent them off, and everyone refused to take them. He wanted to send them to El Salvador, and they said, no, we don't want them. He tried sending a plane load of immigrants to Colombia, and they said, no, we don't want them. And now he's threatening sanctions and some sort of an action against Colombia. You know, Colombia's probably basically said, well, look, you know, who are these people? You're sending us a plane load of people. Are they Colombians? We don't even know who they are. We'd like some sort of a background on these people. Perhaps you could go through normal legal channels to send them here. And because they want to do things properly, Trump's just saying, well, I'm going to put tariffs and all sorts of stuff, and he's threatening Colombia because he can't just send plane loads of migrants there. It's crazy. And he's also like up in arms about Egypt and Jordan as well, because they're refusing to accept Palestinian refugees. They're still just going hard with Palestine and going hard with Gaza, folks. The ceasefire, I mean, I feel so sorry for the Palestinian people because they're actually quite happy at the moment because there's a ceasefire, and so many of them have been leaving the refugee camps in Rafah, and Rafah has been completely destroyed, by the way, while they've been there in their refugee camps. Yeah, there's not much left of Rafah. There's huge tent cities all on the beach in Gaza where there's literally thousands of people living in tents. And all these people from these tent cities are now saying, well, there's a ceasefire, so we want to go home to northern Gaza.
فيا قلب مهلا ولا ترتمي على درب عوداتنا موهنا يعز علينا غدا.
And they're going home to northern Gaza. Of course, Israel has put a checkpoint along the way and they've stopped most of them. There's tens of thousands of people that are stranded halfway between southern Gaza and northern Gaza, and Israel just won't let them through the checkpoints. But even when they do get through the checkpoints and they get back to northern Gaza, they're finding that northern Gaza is gone.
يلا نجرب الله يستر. اوه كثير خربانة. هاي الغسالة شوف فيها اشي. هاي ألعابك. بتنظفوا بنغسل. هذا رصاص برضو من اليهود لما طخوا على الدار.
بابا نصلح البيت.
هنصلحه بس يدخلوا الاسمنت والحجار.
قديش هذا بده وقت؟
هذا وقت ممكن حسب مزاج الاحتلال يسمح او ما يسمح.
Yeah, their homes just aren't there anymore, folks. A lot of people have been longing to get home, but their homes are simply not there anymore. Israel has gone out of its way to destroy everything so that the people have nothing to come back to, because of course they didn't expect they'd ever be allowed to come back. They thought Bibi Netanyahu was going to continue things and they would be displaced and they'd be expelled and they were never going to come back. Even the road to ceasefire, the talk of ceasefire that Benjamin Netanyahu was indulging in with the Palestinian people and on the world stage, the talk of ceasefire, so many people in Israel didn't want that to happen. The head of the settler movement, Danielle Wise, this absolute psychotic parasite that she is, was absolutely outraged that Benjamin Netanyahu would consider a ceasefire. She said it was a very dangerous road because it may prevent them from colonizing all of Gaza and colonizing Lebanon, which is what they want to do.
I address Prime Minister Netanyahu. You are the head. Indeed, you are the head. And it's up to you to change a terrible route that just started. You can stop it today. Not because they don't give the names. Because it is a lie. It's a danger. It leads to No, no, no. We say no to all this distorted route. We want Am Israel in Eretz Israel, in the great Eretz Israel, and never submit to terror, and never, 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 never give any part of the living body of Eretz Israel to anybody. Not to leave, as Ramban said, not to leave Eretz Israel to enemies, and not to leave it desolate. We will settle Gaza. We will settle Lebanon. We will settle the entire promised land. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so it just doesn't stop, folks. It doesn't stop. You know, and Trump has renewed all arms sales to Israel. He's taken off all restrictions because, of course, you need 2,000-pound bombs to defend yourself against a civilian, unarmed population whose country has been basically turned into a wasteland. And Trump's saying he wants to displace all the Palestinian people. He wants to move all of them out of Gaza and either into Egypt or into Jordan. And he's a bit upset with Egypt and Jordan because they're refusing to accept any Palestinian refugees. The Israelis, of course, are jumping at this and saying, well, you can see how bad the Palestinians are. Even their Arab brothers won't accept them because they're so dangerous. That's not the reason, folks. Jordan and Egypt have both openly stated that they will not be a party to any plan that seeks to displace the Palestinian people by force and relocate them in other countries and remove them from their lands, because they are afraid that if the Palestinians are removed from Gaza, then Israel will never allow them to return, which of course is the plan. Yeah, they want to make Gaza uninhabitable so people have got nowhere to return to. That's why they've bombed it so much and turned it to rubble. And this is what ethnic cleansing looks like, folks. This is genocide by definition. Destroying all the buildings, destroying all the structure, destroying the roads. They're still burning West Bank to the ground.
بسرعة بسرعة في تنكات عندك في تنكات.
They're still hacking up roads in West Bank. Under the pretext of fighting against Hamas. I mean, none of this makes any sense, folks. They're still bombing southern Lebanon, for God's sake. There's a ceasefire, but they're still going in there and bombing southern Lebanon every single night.
هيا الضربة هيا هون ليك كنت طالع مارق من هون ليك
Today, 4 people have been killed just behind me with shots fired from the Israelis who are around the vehicle. It's an Israeli armoured vehicle, you can see, at the top of that hill, and they're in position there and in the surrounding houses. They've been shooting and killing Lebanese civilians who are attempting to return to their homes. And as I speak, we can hear more gunfire in the distance. There has been a massacre across Lebanon today. At least 11 Lebanese have been murdered by the Israeli army on the day that the ceasefire expires, and the Israeli army, under the ceasefire deal, is supposed today to withdraw fully from Lebanon. They are not withdrawing, and they are massacring Lebanese attempting to return home. And I want to repeat that again. To our knowledge, so far today, at least 11 Lebanese have been killed and at least 90 others have been shot and wounded. And we ourselves were a little further down this road 20 minutes ago, and we witnessed a 12-year-old boy being shot by the Israelis just here and taken away in an ambulance. He's not among the 4 who were killed just here so far today.
This is just what Israel does. And I feel really sorry for the Palestinian people, because once they spread out and go back to northern Gaza, they've got no homes to go back to. They're going to be in tents. They're going to be spread out all over the place. And once that happens, Israel's going to start bombing them again under the pretext of fighting Hamas. Very notably, they're using the Beavis children. There's been a lot of posting on X and all over social media saying we want the Beavis children returned. Hamas is giving us hostages back, but why not the Beavis children? And as I reported on the last show, the Beavis children were reported to have been killed by an Israeli bombing in November 2023. Hamas actually offered to return the bodies to Israel, but Israel declined the offer. Probably so that they could use them as a political tool now and an excuse to keep bombing Gaza Strip, which is what they want to do. And they're really putting a lot of emphasis on the Beavis children, saying, gee, they better be alive. What do you think we should do if they're not alive? Well, of course, you should go and kill more civilians and more children the way you have been. Not that it means anything or fights Hamas or anything to be doing that. You're just doing it because you like killing, because that is the Israeli way. And Trump is supporting all this, and he's pissed off that Jordan aren't taking any refugees. He's pissed off that Egypt isn't taking any refugees. And like I said, he wants to clear out all of Gaza, folks. He wants to basically see it settled by Israel. And like I said, he's trying to create the North American Union. I mean, wants Greenland, wants Canada, posturing against Mexico. It's unreal, folks, what's going on. And this is going to be a key year. 2025 is going to be an absolutely key year. The introduction of Project Stargate really says a lot. It really does. This is the AI smart system we've been warning about. And remember, like about maybe, well, it must have been close to 10 years ago, maybe less, maybe 7 years ago, but a while ago, I did a show called Giving Life to Lucifer, and I've mentioned it many times recently because this is where we're going. And I've said to people, I mean, what is Lucifer? What does the word even mean? Lucas, light, cipher, code. The code that bears the light. That's Lucifer. You know, because Lucifer is the light bearer. What is light? Light is information. The internet is the Lucifer system. The AI control grid is the Lucifer system. Is this what they warned us about? I mean, Lucifer and Satan are two different things. They're always sort of anthropomorphized by people. They give them kind of human forms. But what if they're not? What if the Lucifer system isn't some big monster with horns? It's a system. You know, like I've said, Lucas, light, cipher, code, the code that bears the light. That is the light bearer. And we're giving total control over to AI. And I said many years ago that in 2025, you're going to see people's relationship with the internet change. And we're heading for that now. This whole Operation Stargate, he's even talking about putting decision making into the hands of AI. Now, I spoke to you quite extensively, I have done recently, talking about how once this AI control grid's in place, if you couple it in with social crediting and carbon crediting, then you're going to soon find that we don't need real government at all. We don't even need a legal system. We don't need judges or courts or any of that sort of stuff, because it's all going to be determined by your social credits and your carbon credits. There'll be two types of people in society, desirables and undesirables. That'll be it. And you won't even really need government except like a figurehead, like Trump up there saying, I'm the president, but really he doesn't make any decisions. All the decisions will be made by AI. And once you fall down a certain level on social credit points, once you fall down a certain level on carbon credit points, and they will limit your ability to purchase, they'll limit your ability to travel, which what they can do with their smart cities and their electric cars, put geofencing on electric cars. So when you're down on social credit points, or if they claim there's a new pandemic or anything like that, and they want to keep you within 5 kilometres of your home, they're going to be able to do it by controlling your car, putting geofencing on your car, putting geofencing on your credit card as well. When you've got digital currency and it's all digital, then you'll find that your credit card will only work within your local area. Once you go outside that area, you're not going to have any purchasing power, you're not going to have access to any money. You find your car won't work when you go outside the area. You know, they call them smart cities because they don't want you to realise they're actually concentration camps, and you mightn't want to live there if they actually called them what they are. But all this is going to be put in place, and this is what this whole Stargate project is all about. It's about removing decision making and putting everybody under AI control. You'll have AI government, you'll have AI police, you'll have AI robot dogs, you'll have electric vehicles geofenced, credit cards geofenced. This is everything we've been talking about, folks, and Trump is rolling it out at breakneck speed as fast as he can. Should be a bit of a clue there for people. But this is the Lucifer system. This is all the stuff that we talked about. And I've mentioned so many times recently that you're not even going to need government soon, and this is what is happening. Pretty freaky stuff, folks. Pretty freaky stuff. As you can see, I'm not at the secret garden. I'm actually up the hill. And I've moved out of where I was in the secret garden, near the secret garden. I wasn't actually living at the secret garden, but I was there all the time doing my walk and talks, and now I'm actually between places. So, and then I got a really interesting couple of months coming up, folks. I really do. I'm looking forward to an Acapulco, which is in about 2 weeks from now, 2.5 weeks, I think, folks. Very, very close. And then after an Acapulco, I'm going to be doing a little bit of traveling around the US and catching up with friends. It's going to be interesting to go there to see what's happening in the US, because since Trump has come in, it's gotten very, very strange. Even crossing the border has gotten very, very strange. It's going to be interesting to go and see. Perhaps I'll even be able to get to LA and check out LA. Speaking of LA, actually, I saw something kind of disturbing the other day. There was a post on X, and there was also a video that I saw on Bitchute. There's an area in LA which is just kind of northeast of downtown, just a few blocks northeast, but there's a whole bunch of containers stored. And in what looks like an open area, which may be enclosed, I don't know, maybe there's a fence around it, but just next to where these containers are stored, there's all sorts of messages assembled and written in the ground and assembled by assembling rubbish. Help, Traffico, a lot of help is written over and over and over again. It would appear that this may be some sort of an area where trafficked people are being held, some sort of a containment area for human trafficking, happening right there in LA, just a few blocks from downtown. Be interesting. Anybody who's living in LA, maybe you might want to go and check this out. It's just near the San Bernardino freeway, just sort of off the freeway. It's kind of on the corner of Mission Avenue and was it East Cesar Chavez Street. So just near that area, and there's a big shipping container area there next to it. Perhaps they've been brought in shipping containers, and it'd just be interesting to go and check this out. So perhaps if you're in LA, you might want to go and have a look. I checked on Google Maps, and it is actually all there. And it's interesting because the Google Maps pictures today are pictures from 2025, so it's pretty recent that these help signs have been put on the ground there. Interestingly, it doesn't show any of the fires damage through Palisades or Malibu, though, on Google Maps in the 2025 images, so perhaps they are right at the beginning of the month, perhaps the first week of January these images were created. But it would be worth going and checking that out, folks. Interesting stuff. But I said to you, years ago that 2025 is going to be a key year. It's going to be the year where our relationship with the internet changes. And we're seeing that with this whole AI governance and Project Stargate and everything Trump is doing. And he's falling over himself to support Israel, folks, which is a very dire situation for the United States. Like I've said before, he's put so many Israelis in his cabinet, and when you look at the outrageously terrorist actions and genocidal actions of the Benjamin Netanyahu government, realizing that this is now the government that is in control of the United States as well, this is very sobering, folks. You know, the Israeli government, this is such a corrupt entity. You know, Israel created terrorism. They brought terrorism to the world, folks. Even one of the, I don't know if it was a prime minister, but the first prime minister, I think Ben-Gurion, was actually a terrorist. He was part of Irgun or Haganah or the Stern Gang, or one of them. There was another man who was president 3 times who was also member of a terrorist organization. And there's another guy, I think his name is Menachem Begin, who actually says, yes, we brought terrorism to not only the Middle East, but to the world. And they did. I mean, the first terrorism that we really saw was the bombing of the ships when they first arrived in Palestine, when they brought Jews down from Europe, which was carried out by MI5 and blamed on the Palestinians. And it was used to paint the Palestinians as terrorists when they weren't. The next major terror attack we saw was the bombing of the King David Hotel, which killed about 90 people, or injured 90 people, over 90 people, of all different creeds, colours and faiths, Jews included. This was actually blamed on Palestinians, but it turned out it was staged by a man called Benjamin Emanuel, Rahm Emanuel's father. And that was Jewish terrorism again. We saw the 1972 Munich Games, when there was a group known as a Black September who are alleged to have killed 11 Israeli athletes. Whether that was Palestinians or whether that was staged by Israel is anybody's guess. I mean, you'd probably have to research that to find out for yourself. I don't believe the official story, because I don't believe any official stories anymore. They've lied to us too much. I mean, why would I believe anything they say? But the interesting thing about the 1972 Munich Games was the name of the group, Black September, and the fact that they killed 11 Israeli hostages. September 11 was the first time September 11 was subliminally placed into the human psyche, and we know where that's gone from there. But there should be no doubt that Israel is the founder of terrorism on this earth, and they use it all the time. They openly state that yes, it's acceptable to use terrorism in war. It's acceptable to use terrorism to get your point across. And of course the old Mossad motto, by way of deception, we shall do war. And once you understand that yes, that is the method that they use, and that they're still using it, well, things become quite transparent when looking at the world situation today. Kind of a sit and talk today, folks. I was going to do a bit of a walk, but I'm too exhausted. It's been a really full-on week for me, folks, moving out of the house that I was in. And it's just been really full on, so I'm just kind of holed up at Jeff's at the moment. Lovely view, but I'm just kind of holed up at Jeff's. That's where I was staying, down there in that foggy region. And I'm going to be here for a few days just while I'm sorting it out. I mean, there's no point in me getting a place, and Jeff kindly offered to let me stay here while he's away. He's not here at the moment, he's up at his ranch. And it seems pointless for me to get a place for a couple of weeks while I'm waiting for the conference to start. And so I'm just sort of come to hang at Jeff's place, and I'll be down there when the conference is on, and that'll be good. And then, like I said, I'm just going to take off and see a few people, and I've got a few plans. It's going to be interesting to see where it goes. But when you understand, like I said, by way of deception, they shall do war. We shall do war. Everything that's happening in the world today is based on deception, folks. Like I said, even the reports of the fires. less fires happening in the world, but 400% more fire reporting from the mainstream media. It would be great to get rid of the mainstream media. I mean, these people are so culpable and so liable for all the bullshit that's going on. You know, that's who sells the lie to people, folks, is the mainstream media, and they're very good at it. I've had below my videos for years in the show notes. The last 2 lines in the show notes have been, turn off your television, throw away your smartphone. It would have been great if people had listened and actually done that, but there doesn't seem to have been much of it. I'm still getting flack from people who can't understand why I don't have a smartphone, don't understand why I've never owned a credit card, don't understand why I've never owned a television. It's kind of crazy. But that's what they've done to the world. They've just fed it lies and bullshit, and they've got everybody distracted. Everybody thinking that, you know, the world functions in a certain way when it actually doesn't. So yeah, kind of freaky. But this whole Project Stargate, this is a removal of all human input into what controls the human experience. You think about it. You know, decision making being put into the hands of AI, which is going to do what is best for the economic model. It's all economics, of course, isn't it? It's all based on your economic standing. This is all the stuff Trump's using against Colombia and stuff, and tariffs, and yeah. Remember back when Trump was campaigning for office, I said to you, looking at his campaign rhetoric, it would appear that one of the main things he's attempting to do is isolate America from the rest of the world. Bringing in trade tariffs with everybody, posturing against Denmark, posturing against Mexico, posturing against Colombia, posturing against Canada even. Saying he's going to put tariffs on all sorts of businesses. If you don't manufacture your products in the United States, then there's going to be major tariffs against you. So they're basically taking America out of the market. No one's going to want to sell any goods in America, which is, of course, the biggest market for capitalism. It's a capitalist culture. And he's really isolating the United States in every way that he can. Even with the people that are aware of what's going on in Gaza and Palestine, don't want to support what's going on in Gaza and Palestine, but they're kind of forced to because of the economic situation of the world, because of course the people with small hats control all the world economics because they control the banking system. And they also control the United States to a ridiculous degree. I mean, the United States is essentially a vassal state of Israel. And so he's really working to isolate the United States. And the people of the United States are absolutely under attack, and they don't even know it. I mean, you know, they've just burnt down one of the biggest cities in America, folks, with LA. They've done it right under your noses using directed energy weapons. And it's so obvious that it was directed energy weapons. You know, a lot of the trees in Palisades are actually Australian eucalyptus trees. You can walk up to a eucalyptus tree with a cigarette lighter and you can light one of the green leaves on fire and that whole tree will just go up. Eucalyptus is incredibly flammable, and yet these trees aren't burned. You've got some areas where the lower leaves are blackened, but they're not burned. They didn't actually catch fire. And these are eucalyptus leaves. How did they not catch fire if this was a normal fire? You know, America's under attack. It's absolutely under attack. Even the food that you eat in the United States, there's no real edible food in the United States unless you're growing it yourself. A simple thing you can do, like if you're someone who travels, just go and look at random everyday food in the supermarket. Boxes of cereal, loaves of bread, you know, peanut butter, whatever. Just stuff that you buy in the supermarket, and have a look at the ingredients on the back of the jar, on the back of the packet. Cereals are a great thing. You can have a look at cereal. You know, you get Wheat Bix or cornflakes or whatever, you would expect there to be corn in cornflakes and maybe a couple of other things. Have a look at what's in the United States in your cereals. And then go, when you go to Europe or go to England or go to other countries, go to Australia, anywhere, have a look at the same box of cereal. It might be Kellogg's whatever, Kellogg's cornflakes, Kellogg's Fruit Loops, Cocoa Pops, whatever. But have a look at the ingredients on the packet. Have a look at what's in these boxes of cereals in the United States, and then go and see what's in the boxes of cereals in Europe. You're going to find the United States has like 15 or 20 extra ingredients that aren't in the European versions. Well, what for? I mean, if it's just a box of cereal, if it's just rice cereal or corn cereal or wheat cereal, then what are all these extra ingredients in there? There was one guy looking through and he was finding that there's a paint stripper in kids' cereals in the United States, just elements of paint stripper in there. So, of course, your kids end up getting cancer, they need chemotherapy. They make some good little slaves to the medical system, the pharmaceutical system. See, the medical system, the pharmaceutical industry, it's not in their best interest to keep you healthy, folks. If they create healthy people, then they take their customer base away from themselves. They need people to be sick so they can sell them medicines. That's why when people go for checkups, you know, there'll always be something wrong. We need to give you a pill for something, your blood pressure or this or that. Now, people feel great, and yet they go for a checkup anyway, so the doctor can tell them whether they're sick. It doesn't make much sense. And of course, like I said, the doctor will always find something wrong with you so he can give you some medication. And then when you go back for your next checkup, you're going to find that, well, you've got this problem and you've got that problem, which is, of course, all side effects from the medication that he gave you. And so he's going to have to give you more medication to deal with all of these new problems. So the people in the United States are under attack from so many levels, it's just ridiculous. You know, the food, the spraying in the sky, that fog that they recently had all over the place, which people have done tests and they found bacteria, microbes, germs, all sorts of stuff in this fog. They're putting poison in your food, they're spraying poison on you in the air, they're burning your cities down. And now Trump's coming along, sealing all the borders under the guise of protecting people. And 11 million people he wants to deport. I said a few shows ago that what this is going to do is get rid of a lot of the lower levels of the American workforce. You've got a lot of Mexicans in the United States who do all the menial jobs. They work in the laundries, they do house cleaning at motels. A lot of the stuff that Americans don't want to do, they consider it to be below them, to be house cleaning in a hotel or whatever. And a lot of these jobs are done by Mexicans. They just appreciate the better wages when they go to the United States and they're able to send money back to their families in Mexico. All of these people are being removed, so you're not going to have a lot of people that are going to want to pick up garbage. They're not going to be wanting to do laundry work. They're not going to want to be working as housemaids at motels and things, because these are menial jobs that are considered to be beneath them. Why are you going to do a job like that when you can go out and make $43 million in a year on an OnlyFans site by being an online porn star? You know, like so many women are being trained to do now and programmed to do now, thinking that it's a good thing. You know, we've got a really weird society, folks. I mean, the American society especially, the American society is based on youth, beauty and sex. Basically, you've got to be young, beautiful and sexy. So if you're not sexy, well, you need to get breast enhancements and lip enhancements and butt enhancements and all sorts of stuff like that. And don't ever allow yourself to grow old, which is of course what you're going to do. By the time you get to 30 or 40, all of the implants that you had when you were 20 are going to look ridiculous on someone that age, but they do it anyway. And that's American society. It's very, very superficial. So once people get to 30 or 40, if they haven't kind of made it to a certain level, if they're not a billionaire like Elon Musk or whatever, they feel like they're a lesser person. If they're not still young and beautiful, if they don't look like they're 20 when they're 40, they feel like they're a failure. It's crazy what's been done to the United States, folks. It's a really adolescent culture, and it's under attack from so many directions. And the people of the United States just can't see it. But it's really coming to a head now, folks. It's really coming to a head now. And as I said, our relationship with the internet is going to change through all of this. Another thing Elon Musk is doing as well, speaking about that, is he's now finding a way that he can use Starlink satellite internet and phone connections for any phones, even if they're not Starlink phones. So that it doesn't matter whether you've got an iPhone, whether you've got an Android, or who your service provider is, your phone will be compatible with his new Starlink system that he's setting up. So they're getting everybody on the grid. Now, doing this, of course, under the guise of helping people and getting everybody connected. The way they do vaccines under the guise of helping people, the way they're doing this whole project Stargate under the guise of helping people. Interesting that it's called Stargate too, don't you think? You know, when you look at the TV show Stargate and you look at the whole concept of Stargates, it's for moving you between dimensions or moving you between worlds, whether it's physical worlds or whether it's through a dimensional portal or whatever, like wormholes. When you think of the whole AI grid wanting to move you into the mainframe, well, is that what Stargate's all about? Moving you into the mainframe, getting you out of this reality altogether. And what is it going to be like, folks, when people are all working around with their virtual reality goggles and living in their virtual reality worlds? It'll be like the Matrix. You're just living in this bubble and the world is being deteriorated around you. Like that old movie with Bruce Willis called Surrogates, where everybody was forever young. They were lying in pods in their home and there was like a robot surrogate that would go out and do their job for them. They'd operate it from the pod at home, but they never really have to go out and participate in the world or look at themselves or see themselves or see their wife or anything like that. It was always staying young and beautiful, because America has this obsession with youth and beauty. And it's got to be youthful, it's got to be beautiful, it's got to be sexy, or it's just not wanted. That's the way America works, you know. So they've taken everybody's true concept of life and what it means to be alive and what it means to be free, what it means to be successful, what it means to be human. They've taken this away from everybody and created this really superficial reality, like they've done with the rest of the world. I mean, we used to have this incredibly beautiful world, and they took all that away and created this horrible, ugly, sterile world that we've got now that they call beautiful. So look at our fantastic architecture and our new streamlined designs. It's all ugly. Just glass and steel and straight corners and flat surfaces and just ugliness, the whole thing. You know, so they've taken all that beauty away from us, taken that world away from us, and now they're taking the very life away from people, moving people into this mainframe reality, the Lucifer system that we've all warned you about. You know, I've been speaking about this for the last 15 years, folks. I did the first show on this, was a movie that I put out actually in 2010 called Transformation, 2010 or maybe 2012. It was a while ago, called Transformation, where I talked about this Lucifer system and what it's going to lead to. And here we are. They're doing it all now through this whole Operation Stargate, or the Stargate Project, whatever it's called. But yeah, like I said, Stargate, interesting, moving into another reality. Well, that's kind of what they're doing, folks. They're moving you into a digital reality. And AI has gotten so good now that it's very difficult to tell the difference between real people and AI people. There's a lot of very deceiving videos appearing online now. There's someone saying something and it's not actually them, and they're not actually saying that. The whole thing's an AI creation. As I've said before, you're not even going to be able to use video evidence as evidence in court anymore. It's not going to be admissible because it's too difficult to know whether it's real evidence or whether it's AI created evidence. Look at the October 7th attacks that Hamas is alleged to have carried out against Israel. I went through that interview with Matt Girton a couple of weeks ago, and I showed you that most of those videos are actually AI. So what really happened with that, even with now with Hamas coming out, like all these, when they've brought out a ceasefire and suddenly Hamas is everywhere in brand new clean uniforms. Why would that be happening, folks? Well, they're probably Israelis dressed up. That's why they wear masks all the time. You can't tell whether they're Arabs or Israelis. A lot of Israelis in the area can speak Arabic. Of course they can. And they like to go in and infiltrate everything. But it also creates the excuse. Israel could say, well, look, see how many Hamas are there? I mean, we turned Gaza to rubble. We destroyed almost every home. And still Hamas are there. Because they only put the uniforms on when there's a ceasefire. When there isn't a ceasefire, they're dressed up as doctors and nurses and civilians and aid workers, claiming everybody's Hamas, of course. And of course, they're not going to release the Beavis children, and Hamas is still there, and we've turned the whole place to rubble. So obviously we need to go in there with bombs and destroy every single building, make sure there's nothing left standing at all. You can see how they're going to use it as an excuse. That's why I feel really terrible for the Palestinian people, because they're returning to their homes to find out their homes are gone. I mean, they're elated, they're overjoyed that there's a ceasefire. The bombs have stopped. They've had 300 or 480 days of bombs falling around the clock. So bad that children are traumatized. There's 25% of the children in Gaza have lost the ability to speak. And if they even hear a bomb, they burst into tears. They just freak out. They're under so much trauma. And they're finally overjoyed because the bombs have stopped. Then they pack up their stuff and they want to go back to their homes. They go back there, they find their homes are not there. So they get a little bit of resilience and they say, okay, well, we rebuild. But, of course, they're going through major depression at the same time. And then Israel's going to claim, well, Hamas is still there. We can't have Hamas in there because Hamas caused the biggest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. And so they're going to go in and start bombing them again. I feel really bad for the people of Gaza, folks. Because the way of Palestine will be the way of the world, you should feel bad for them too. Because this is coming everywhere, just different strokes for different folks in different countries. They're still talking about plunging Europe into war, and they are destroying the United States from within. It's one of the reasons Trump's locking it down so much, folks, shutting all the borders, kicking all the low-class workers out, spraying the sky with chemicals. He still considers himself to be the father of the vaccine. And he can throw a few bones to the people. Like he's got Fauci in there going to trial at the moment. He released Ross Ulbricht. Did a few things, released the January 6 people. And everyone's, ecstatic that he's closing the borders and blah, blah, blah. It's theatre for the masses, folks. It's all theatre for the masses because underneath that, he's rolling out this whole project Stargate. Part of that as well is mRNA vaccines. They're saying they want to inject mRNA vaccines into people, programmable vaccines. So whatever you get sick for, well, they're just going to be able to program the vaccine to fix you up. They're not telling you that they can also program the vaccine to make you sick in the first place because it isn't a vaccine. It's a back door they're putting into everybody's bodies. And so many people can't see it. It's kind of freaky. It's kind of freaky. But hey, that's where we're going, folks. And they wouldn't have been able to do this had the Democrats got elected. But it's been interesting, like the last show I did, where I talked about order out of chaos, the chaos required to bring about the order that they want. See, that's why Biden was so bumbling, and that's why all this LGBTQ stuff was pushed. I mean, Trump's wanting to outlaw that and get rid of all that stuff. See, they turned the world so dystopian in the last 5-6 years that, it's just beyond analysis what's happened to the world. People don't even know what a female is anymore. They don't know what gender they are anymore when there's only two. So they've created all this chaos in every single way that they can think of. So now Trump can come in and fix it all. He can get rid of the LGBTQ stuff. He can say there's only two genders. He can secure the borders. He can act like a humanitarian because he wants to relocate the people of Gaza so they can just not have to deal with war anymore. All pointing towards the same thing. And he comes across as the good guy trying to save the people of Gaza. The good guy trying to get rid of the corrupt people like Fauci and blah, blah, blah. all theatre for the masses, folks. He's got to do that so that you'll believe in him, so then he can roll out this whole AI grid that he wants to roll out, and probably a new pandemic as well. It's really clever. I mean, you've got to give them 10 points for creativity, folks. It's quite remarkable, really. And the world's just going in a very, very strange and unpredictable direction. Well, predictable in as much as it's a control grid that they're going to bring in, this whole smart AI system. But unpredictable in like, what are they going to throw at us next? You know, we've had floods, fires, fogs, UFOs, drones, all this sort of shit. Didn't that disappear from the news really quickly? You know? Incredible how that happened. Perhaps there was a thought that they were going to do Project Bluebeam, but it didn't really work out. Everyone was calling it out, and so they had to sort of change their narrative. Because they've always got backup plans and backup plans for the backup plans, and plan A and plan B and C, D, E, F. I mean, it just goes on. They've got all sorts of ways of doing things. But it's become kind of unpredictable, and I'm really happy that I'm kind of back to being a free spirit. It was so good to get rid of all that shit from the bar, the old bar that I had, get rid of all that old stock. I ended up donating a lot of it to a turtle farm, which is really cool. It felt good doing that. You know, they lost a lot of stuff in the hurricane, and I gave them a lot of really good stuff they can use, and stuff that I'm never going to use, like, you know, boxes of table napkins and boxes of glasses and plates and pizza ovens and cooking utensils and all sorts of stuff that I'm never going to want, and I managed to get it to a place where it's appreciated and will be looked after, and it just felt great to be able to do that. But I've kind of got myself almost back down to a couple of suitcases, and I don't know, there's just something about me that says that's what I need. I need to be able to kind of pack up and leave and go wherever at a moment's notice, because who knows how things are going to go. It is kind of unpredictable, folks. I mean, it's interesting because, like I said, it's predictable, but it's unpredictable at the same time. Unpredictable in how they're going to do it and how quick they're going to do it. I mean, they've really gotten away with stuff so far this year. I mean, I can't believe it. Like the first week of Trump's presidency, I mean, he's done so much stuff, all to support the agenda. Not to free people, but to support the agenda under the pretext of freeing the people. Quite remarkable how they do it, folks. They're very clever. Very, very clever. But anyway, this is just a short video, folks. I don't have a lot to share with you. I just want to kind of let you know that I'm alive. Let you know that I'm sort of in transit at the moment. I can't do any interviews. People who've been requesting interviews, all I've got is this little laptop at the moment. I don't have any camera set up, I don't have any microphones set up, so I can't do any interviews. I'm not going to be able to do any interviews until I get set up somewhere again, which may even take as long as like mid-March. I mean, I've got to do the conference in 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. I'm going to be kind of floating here at Jeff's place for a couple of weeks. Then I'll be doing the conference. I'll be back in Bonfil, and then after that I'm going to be kind of floating again for maybe 2 weeks, and then maybe mid-March I might be set up somewhere. So just kind of playing it all by ear, folks. So, but I don't know, it feels good. It feels good to be transient again. Maybe because I've had such a transient lifestyle. I don't know. I mean, I spent most of my life on the road in bands and stuff. Never really lived anywhere or did much like that. So I'm kind of prepared for it. And I kind of get itchy feet, even though I'm like 67 years old. It would be nice to have a base, as long as I don't have to be there all the time, you know. So it feels kind of good to be transient, but I'm wondering why the universe is kind of making me transient at this particular time. What's going to happen over the next few weeks? I mean, we've seen so much happen just in the first week of Trump's presidency. Where's he going to go from here? And like I said, I can't believe the arrogance of the guy. They just send plane loads of immigrants off wherever. We'll relocate all the people out of Gaza Strip into Jordan and Egypt. What if the people in Gaza Strip don't want to be forcefully relocated? What if Jordan and Egypt don't want to accept Palestinian refugees because they don't wish to empower and enable Israel, which is what they do? I mean, if they accept Palestinian refugees, not only do they dishonour the Palestinian people and take part in their forcible displacement, but they also aid and abet the state of Israel in its theft of Palestine. So all of this talk that, you know, the Arab countries don't want them because they're so violent. No, it's nothing to do with that, folks. They don't want them because the Palestinians don't want to leave their homeland. They will stay and die there, even if their house has been turned to rubble. They will stay and die there if that's what it takes. You know, they're not going to dishonour those who came before them, all the people who died fighting for the cause. That's why they call them martyrs. Everybody dies, they call them a martyr, because they died for the cause of a free Palestine. And to just allow yourself to be relocated would be to dishonour that. And Trump's talking about Jordan, he's talking about Egypt, he's even talking about Indonesia. Oh, there's all these islands in Indonesia. We could give the Palestinians an island. Oh, what do the Indonesians think about that? And maybe the Palestinians don't want to move to Indonesia. You know, it's just unreal, the arrogance. And again, doing it under the pretext of humanitarian. You're doing it to be a humanitarian, to save the Palestinian people because it's such a war zone. All the buildings have been reduced to rubble. Oh, we can't rebuild it. Well, we've got to rebuild it, but we can't rebuild it the way it was. And we can't have those people there because most of them are dead anyway. So we need to relocate them. This is such arrogance, folks. Rebuild it in Israel's image is what he wants to do. The whole Israel thing, and I'm sick of talking about it. I'm sick of talking about Israel, and I'm kind of sick of talking about Gaza, but it's important. As I've said so many times, the way of Palestine will be the way of the world, and we're seeing this unfolding now, folks. We're seeing this unfolding all over the place. It was Holocaust Remembrance Day yesterday as well. Oh my Lord, didn't that go well for the people on X? There's so many people posting bad stuff about them, and so they should. I mean, the whole thing is an absolute hoax. Even Elie Wiesel, people are still quoting Elie Wiesel on Holocaust Remembrance Day, even though Elie Wiesel admitted that he was never in any of the camps and all the stuff that he had in his books was completely fabricated. And he was asked, like, do you feel guilty about lying about all this stuff? And he said, oh no, not at all, because had I been in the camps, that's what it would have been like, you know? And there was another guy recently as well, another Jewish author who claimed to have met what's the guy's name? Gary Owens or something like that, the athlete, claims to have met Dr. Mengele and all sorts of stuff. He admits as well that he fabricated the whole thing. He was never in any of the camps. But he did it because he wants to keep the Holocaust narrative alive. 80 years they've been pushing this shit, folks. And it's a hoax. The whole thing is an absolute hoax. And when it really sinks into people that it's a hoax, and the amount of privilege that these people have got by perpetuating this hoax, I mean, it's the cruelest lie that's ever been perpetrated against the human race. It really is, most especially the people of Germany. But once it really sinks into people that it's a hoax, there's not going to be anywhere safe on this earth for these people to go to. There really isn't. I mean, and their time may be up anyway. I mean, they've generally got an 80-year lifespan with every country that they overrun and try to overtake. It usually lasts about 80 years and they get kicked out and expelled. Well, Donald Trump's trying to prevent that happening. Donald Trump is really like pushing it, and like I said, the US government is virtually the Israeli government now. Israel controls the United States in every manner possible, and so they kind of feel confident that they're going to get away with it this time. But I personally don't think they will, folks. I think the backlash has been too much. Even Israelis holidaying around the place are being called out. Israelis holidaying in New Zealand, there's Twitter posts saying, hey, we hear these people holidaying in New Zealand, we need to find them because they're war criminals. Everywhere they're going, this is happening, folks. People are calling them out and wanting to get them out of their country. Israel has lost so much credibility. I don't even know how anyone could call themselves a Jew anymore, folks. I mean, it's not a race, it's a faith. And when you realise just how corrupt and evil this faith is, well, why would you ever want to even call yourself a Jew? Why would you want to associate with that? It's just nuts. Yeah, and so it's all coming undone for them, folks. It's all coming undone for them. But hey, what an interesting time. What an interesting time. The best thing you can do, as I've said before, is become the observer through this. And if you want to participate in any way in making a difference, disconnect from the system as much as you possibly can. Stop shopping with cards, stop shopping with digital cash, stop taking your smartphone out with you everywhere you go, stop shopping with credit cards, stop watching television, folks. You've got to disconnect. The whole smart grid, it depends on the cell phone. It depends on us being connected to it. Even with all this shit Elon Musk wants to do now and make sure, you know, all cell phones can access his Starlink internet and he can be the service provider for everyone. He's even talked about buying TikTok as well. We look at the censorship that he's done on X, and he wants to buy TikTok and censor that the same as the way he's censored X. There's a lot of free Palestine stuff on TikTok. There's a lot of war crimes being posted on TikTok. They don't want you seeing that. You know, and it's not a good platform. I mean, none of these social media platforms are any good. TikTok does send an awful lot of information to the CCP. It may claim that it doesn't, but it does. There's a report that I did maybe 2 years ago. I'd have to go back and try to find it, but there's a report I did maybe 2 years ago which showed you the amount of data collection that TikTok actually indulges in and how it shares that information. I've tried to find that clip again so I could just put a little bit of it here in the video, but I haven't been able to find it. And it's too time consuming for me to go back through my old videos and try to find the one that I put the clip in before. I just don't have time to do that. So, but they're trying to control everything. They're trying to take over the entire internet, put it into the hands of fewer and fewer people. And very soon, it won't even be people. Once Project Stargate is launched, it won't even be people. It will be AI in control of it all. Stop interacting with AI, folks. I mean, AI is learning from you. I've said before, I think even in my film, The Awakening, or maybe it was Transformation, I said you can think of the internet as being kind of like a new nervous system of a new being, and every single person who is plugged into the internet is like a neural node feeding the collective brain of the internet. Search engines are not just for searching. They don't just search for things. It also tells the internet what you're thinking about, what's important to you, what topics are being searched by people, what information they want. It gives you a pretty good overview of the current zeitgeist of humankind, human consciousness, just by looking at search engine data. All of this sort of stuff is being correlated, and this is what is being used to form this AI. That's what it's learning from. And we're the ones feeding it, we're the ones empowering it, we're the ones teaching it to take over, basically. It's going to be really interesting to see where we are by the end of 2025. We're expecting a mass die-off this year. We've seen that, in as much as the jab damage is still being reported and coming to the front. Fires, all the burning across the United States, people being displaced and freezing to death in South Carolina at the same time. Wars, famine, hardship. What's going on in Syria? The brutality in Syria, folks. The HTS, who are Western-backed terrorists, and they're saying, applauding that they overthrew Assad. I could show you some images of the beatings, the whippings, the amount of cruelty, children being shot, rapes, pillages, and plunders that are happening in Syria, but it's just too painful to watch. This is all happening at the same time, folks. The world is just in a state of absolute chaos. Absolute chaos. Maybe not so much on the ground in some Western countries, but overseas, like in Syria and through the Middle East, it's just unbelievable, folks. And this is all kind of coming to a head now. And it's going to be interesting to see where we are by the end of 2025. As I've said, people's relationship with the internet is changing. And that's what the internet was actually designed to do. I came across this new thing, and all interconnectivity, and it's all anonymous, and it's just a free-for-all. Anybody can do anything they want online. And now it's getting more and more tightly controlled, where it's controlling what you can do online, and pretty soon what is online is going to be controlling you. That's the way it's going. So the best thing you can do is disconnect, and like I said, become the observer of all this. I mean, if humankind was going to wake up, I think they probably would have by now. And I'm sure there's still a lot more people who are awake, but a lot of them are in fear. So it's very difficult to coordinate them. And how do you coordinate them anyway? As soon as you start saying anything about, hey, we need to hold these governments to account, you get labelled as a domestic terrorist or whatever, and they shut you down and then steal your computer and disappear all your friends and all the shit that they do. So it's best you just kind of step outside, step with 1 foot in the matrix and 1 foot out of the matrix, and disconnect from it as much as possible. Remove any stake you have in the outcome of this experiment, and just kind of cruise through as the observer. That, I think, is the way through from this point. And be prepared for anything. Perhaps that's why the universe is preparing me for change now, like turning me into this transient person. And again, I'm kind of used to it. I've spent my life in a transient lifestyle, so it doesn't scare me at all. But it's just kind of interesting. I even observe that when these sorts of things happen to me, these little intuitive things, and I just kind of go with them. And I tend to observe that and just think, well, what's this all about? Where's it going to lead me? And how is it going to put me in a position I need to be in when something happens? And just the fact that I'm going into this transient lifestyle again would show me that something is about to happen. That's kind of the way the universe works, folks. My life has been a wonder, really, when I look back. It's interesting how life can be understood perfectly in reverse. When it's all happening and you're just kind of moving with it at the time, you don't understand why this stuff's happening to you and why you're going here and why you're going there and why this and why that. But when you look back and view it all in reverse, it all makes sense. Like a lot of the life skills I picked up along the way, I didn't know why I was picking up any of these life skills. I look at my life now doing walk and talks and video editing and podcasting and speaking on stage with massive crowds there and all sorts of stuff like that. And I see why I was given all these life skills earlier in my life. I just didn't know what they were for. But they were also that I could live the life that I'm living now and do it with the ease that I'm able to do this now. The same with being transient. I mean, I was kept transient for 20, 30 years on the road with bands and things. And so I'm really used to that type of lifestyle. It feels kind of uncomfortable sitting in one place for too long. So it's all kind of interesting how it works out, folks. So yeah, but anyway, I'm going to leave it there for now. Thank you for joining me on this report. Again, thank you to all the people speaking out. It's really important that you do speak out. It's really important that you reach out and help those people around you who require help and who are open to being helped, and offer support for people you know who might be just waking up. Now, help them see the positive side of all this. Don't have them move into fear. I mean, sure, the world's changing. It's not going to be the way it was, but it wasn't very good. We just thought it was good. But when you look at what the old world was before this new prefab stucco steel and glass society was created, you find that the old world was a lot better than what we perceive this world to be. You know, and all the stuff that say we're at the cutting edge of technology now. No, we're not. We're at the background of technology. We had technology prior to this that was fantastic. You know, we couldn't have done all those things we did and built all those buildings we built if we were stuck in this technology we're using now. So kind of just observe, folks. Observe the whole thing. You realise you've been lied to on all counts, and there's nothing to fear about the impending collapse of the slavery system. Might be a little tricky to begin with, which is why one of the best things you can do is get back in touch with your life skills and just know how to get by. Know how to get by. I mean, we tried to wake the vast majority of people out there up. We tried to show them what was going on. They chose not to look. They chose to remain dependent upon the system. They chose to participate in all the divide and conquer strategies that the government gives us. Black against white, ethnic against Chinese, ethnicity against other ethnicity. You know, living in a society where the only thing that's really valued is youth and beauty. All superficial bullshit. No respect for your elders. You don't grow wise with age, you just grow ugly and less sexy with age. That's the way they want to put it. You know? So there's not a lot of respect for elders or any of that sort of stuff. I mean, there is in some circles, but not generally as a whole within this society. It's all been done for a reason, folks. So thank you to the people that are speaking about it and that are embracing life to the fullest and sharing that with people and leading by example in what they do. That's what's going to make a difference more than anything else. Thank you to all the people who send me so many kind emails. Again, sorry I don't get to answer too many of them, folks. And of course, thank you to all the people who contribute to keep the show going. You guys have been incredible over the last 10 years, and I cannot thank you enough for the support that you've given to me. It's very inspiring, it's very encouraging as well, because it confirms for me that people believe in the message as much as I do. And the message has always been self-empowerment. The message has always been, we are the ones creating this mess, and we are the ones who can fix it. Every bad thing in the world happened because of a thought in a human mind, the same as every good thing that happened in the world. We got a little off the track over the last century or two. We started viewing things a little bit more superficially than what we should have. We lost our life skills. We forgot how to be parents. The children forgot how to be children, or they were never allowed to be children. It's about time we turned the tables. I mean, we reached a point of spiritual bankruptcy, folks, where this has to happen. You know, everything that's wrong with the world today is based on our tolerance of wrong behaviour, our apathy, our simple acceptance of the fact politicians lie and wars happen and blah, blah, blah. We don't ever do anything to try to stop it. And all we have to do to stop it is to stop believing we have rulers, stop believing that our governments are there to control us. They're not. They're there to manage infrastructure. That's their only purpose. But they've kind of tricked us into thinking that we actually need these people to protect us. And the less we believe we need them, the more trouble they create to give us the impression that, yes, we absolutely do need them. Problem, reaction, solution, folks. Hegelian dialectic, that's how it works. You know, you create the problem that you want so that people will ask for the solution that you want to implement, which is what you wanted to do at the beginning, but you couldn't do it, so you had to create the problem and get the people to ask for it. But a lot of people are waking up to that. A lot of people are becoming aware, which is why they've got to ramp things up so much and escalate the agenda so quickly and so much to try to maintain their grip on things. So they've got to censor information so much, folks. It's not about protecting you from hate speech, it's about protecting them from people waking up to the truth of how this world is run. So yeah, interesting times, folks, really interesting times. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there for now. Thank you for joining me on this report. I'll bring you another one soon. They're going to be very intermittent, though, over the next month or 6 weeks. I'd say till mid-March, it's going to be very touch and go. I don't know how many videos you're going to get out of me. I'm not even sure where I'm going to be. So, and I'm kind of enjoying that. It's interesting. I mean, a lot of people would find it a stressful way to live. And sure, it can be stressful, it can be uncertain, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know where you're going to be from one day to the next or where you're going to end up living. And We've got a lot of stuff in storage, both here and in Australia. So it's kind of a weird place to be, but it's also really exhilarating. It's really also very invigorating. So, you know, I kind of like it. And I think the universe has put me in this position for a reason. Generally because something large is about to happen. And we're seeing all this unfold with the Trump presidency, folks. But don't be fooled into thinking he's your friend. He's not. He might be doing things like releasing the January 6th protesters and releasing Ross Ulbricht and acting like as a humanitarian in Gaza, but he's not. He's ushering in the agenda that they want. And ultimately, he works for Israel. He doesn't work for the American people as much as he works for Israel. So pay attention, folks. Trump isn't your friend any more than any other politician is your friend. Personally, I'd like to see all these people gone. I'd like to see us get back to a point of self-governance, back to a point where we can take responsibility for ourselves. That's probably going to take a little bit of work. You know, it's going to take a major re-education of human consciousness, but hey, perhaps that's what we came here for, and perhaps this is just the way it has to be. Like I was saying before, we've reached a point of spiritual bankruptcy collectively as a human race, human species, that, well, this had to happen. We're the ones who've created all of this. You blame the politicians, blame the Jews, blame the Jesuits, blame all of them. Sure, they all had a hand in it, but it was our compliance that did the whole thing. We could have said, hey, that's a stupid idea. No, we're not going to do it. We could have done that with just about everything, folks, but people were too scared to do that, too scared to stick their head up. Immediately they've been fluoridated, they've been dumbed down through chemicals in their food, dumbed down through television, spraying in the skies and God knows what else. So it's hard to be too hard on people and blame them too much. But by the same token, it is us that's done all of this. And I think it's going to be us that pulls us out of this mess as well. But we've got to that point now where there's just so many NPCs out there, there's so much chaos. You just go and look at any video of daily life in Chicago or New York or whatever, crazy people doing crazy things, people fighting in the street, you know, deaths on the subways, just crazy shit, fires, floods, just chaos, mayhem everywhere. So, you know, you've got to be like the person on the canoe that's just paddling through this sea of garbage and none of it's sticking to you. It's just all kind of falls off. You can see the light at the end of the tunnel and you can see that this is the way humankind purifies itself. This is the way consciousness purifies itself. Like I've often said, it's a form of soul purification. All of the idiots, I mean, as much as we tried to warn them, all you can do is put it out there and say, hey, the vaccine was poison. If they still choose to have it after seeing all the data, well, that's on them, and that's okay, because we don't really need them to be here in the world. The reason the world is in the disrepair that it's in is because of such people who simply don't pay attention, don't listen, don't participate in life at all. All they want to do is look young and sexy and have a big front door. And I think that's what life's about. You know, so in many ways it's a good thing. All this mass die-off and all this shit that's about to happen, in many ways it had to happen. And there's no one to blame for it but ourselves. And those people who took the jab, those people who still think this system's real, well, their karma is their own. This is what they've done, and they're going to have to suffer the consequences of that. As much as I love people, it's okay for all these people to die off, folks. You know, what's going to come through the other side is going to be incredible. I mean, you might have some of the elite politicians and some of these elites that get to hide in their bases who didn't have the mRNA jab and they've got enough money to build themselves luxury bunkers or whatever. You might have them come through the other side as well. And of course, they're going to try to control you at the end. You know, once we get through all this, they're going to say, well, look what happened to the world as a result of pandemics and climate change and all the stuff that we did. Obviously, we can't run the world that way again. Look at all the people who just died. We need AI control. The AI will tell us what to do because we shouldn't be allowed to think for ourselves. This is what they're going to try, but it's going to be up to us whether we accept that. You know, perhaps society will split in two. Perhaps you'll have like a Hunger Games type of society Perhaps it'll be like in 1984, where there was that fringe group. Again, in Brave New World, there was that fringe group that lived outside the mainstream of society. Perhaps that's what it's going to be. And perhaps we'll have to do that. And then this technocracy is going to build itself, but ultimately it's going to collapse in on itself anyway. It's going to implode, because even with the technocracy, it may be efficient and run by computers and shit, but it still needs human input. It still needs, human society to be there. We are the food that powers the AI. We are the food that powers the system. And the system that is being created is going to be so anti-life and anti-human that it's going to kill its own food source. So perhaps then they'll come looking for us and blah, blah, blah. But I think whatever happens, human consciousness is going to win at the end of the day. There may be a lot less people on Earth than there are now, but I think human consciousness will still win. It just had to be that way, folks. That's what happens when you reach this level of spiritual bankruptcy. And it is chaos out there, folks. I like to think that there's a lot of people waking up. But hey, just go and walk around Acapulco. Walk around Mexico City. Walk around New York, LA, Philadelphia. Walk around London. Walk around France. You see people protesting certain issues. And even the people protesting what's going on in Palestine and Gaza, it's great that you're showing solidarity. But you need to pull support away from your governments. It's your governments that have enabled all this. You can go and protest in the street and walk around with a flag all you want. It doesn't mean anything. You've got to understand that your governments are the ones that are funding this. Your governments are the ones that are supporting this. And they're doing so because you comply with their wishes. So that has to stop, folks. That's how to change the world. Rediscover yourself. Stop believing you need to live up to the standards or morals of anybody else. Stop believing you need government there to control you. You don't. You can do this yourself. And if people really try, well, we got this, we got it. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there for now, folks. Thank you for joining me on this report. It's always a pleasure to have your company. I will bring you another one as soon as I'm able. Like I said, they may be kind of intermittent for the next 6 weeks because I've just got so much on. I've still got to repack all my bags and sort out what's going in storage, what's going travelling with me, and just kind of work it all out. And I do want to try to get some time for relaxation while I'm here as well. I haven't had a lot of that over the last week or so. But yeah, it might be a little intermittent, but I will get them to you as regularly as I'm able. And just pay attention to the world, folks. Pay attention to the world. Pay attention to yourself. Improve on your life skills. This is the best thing you can possibly do at the moment. And if you have kids, teach them how to look after themselves. Teach them how to build shelters. Teach them camping skills. Teach them how to forage. Teach them how to start a fire, how to cook food, how to build a shelter. There's so much stuff you can teach these kids. Get back in touch with nature, folks, because I think this new grid that they're creating, it's going to be so unnatural. You're not going to want to be part of it. Maybe some of you will. Like I said, maybe you don't want to get through the other side. Maybe you just want to go down with the ship and enjoy the freak show. Personally, I don't care. I've lived 67 years. I don't care whether I live for another 30 or 40 or whatever, or whether I end up dead in a couple of weeks. I don't really care. I don't have any stake in it. I came here to die anyway. Of course, I'd like to stay alive. I'd like to see the end of the game. But I don't even really have any stake in that. So I'm just kind of ready for anything to happen. Face infinity without flinching, folks. That's what you've got to do. The part of the warrior. Be prepared for everything. But like I said, the most important thing you can do is to develop life skills. Get back in touch with your humanity. It is essential at this time, and that more than anything else is what's going to bring you through the other side. And don't be in fear of any of this stuff. Don't be in fear, folks. They can only hurt you if you're in fear. And I just don't fear any of it. I really don't. I think this has been a long time coming, and I could predict this when I was in school. And here we are. So yeah, interesting times, folks. Interesting times. But anyway, I'll bring you another report soon. Please take very good care until then. Stay strong. Have faith in yourself more than anything else, because you're the one that has to look after you. No one else is going to do it. You're the one who is responsible for yourself and for your family, and teach your family self-responsibility as well. That's important. But I'll look forward to speaking to you again soon, folks. Stay safe, stay strong, stay positive, stay empowered. Enjoy the freak show, become the observer, and you'll get through. You'll get through. It's going to be an interesting ride. But hey, what a time to be alive. What an incredible time to be alive, hey. To be here for this big show that they're putting on. Although I must admit, it was nicer and far more simpler when I was a kid. Think about all the stuff you did when you were a kid. You know, billy carts and just the freedom that you had to do anything. You know, when we were doing that, we didn't realise we were the last generation that was going to get to experience all that. Kind of sobering. I mean, my kids, when they grew up, my son, when he was growing up, he wasn't able to do any of the stuff that I did when I was a kid, when I was his age. That was very noticeable to me. But it's interesting how, it's like Joni Mitchell said in the song, you know, you don't know what you got till it's gone. And we didn't realise what we had. It was just the way life was. But now it's gone. Interesting times, folks. Interesting times. But like I said, I think we'll get back to it. It just has to be this way. That's the way it is. And when you think of it as soul purification, wow. Hell of a time to be alive, folks. Hell of a time to be alive. And how else are you going to get the sheep to kill themselves off? You need someone like Trump to come in there and lead them off the cliff. And he's doing a grand job of it. So, who knows, folks? It's going to be an interesting world, though, isn't it? It's going to be a really interesting world. As long as Israel doesn't control the coming world. Of course, that is their plan. That's why they want to set Greater Israel up. They want Israel to be the centre of the world. They want Israel to be controlling the world. They want a new United Nations with Israel at the top. And of course, then all the Jews get their, 18,000 slaves each, which will be all the goyim. And that isn't slaves like you're walking around with chains on and cuffs and stuff. It's debt slaves. You know, you're paying your taxes, you're running on the treadmill, you're building their homes for them, you're doing all this sort of stuff. So Jews don't build their own homes. They get labourers to come in and build it for them. Jews don't really have a lot of life skills. Their skill is in lying and deception and control of the money supply. That's their skill. Control of other people from external means, managing the world by way of deception. That's how they do it. So the slaves are simply going to be people who are there running on the treadmill and stuck in this corporate system and doing what the AI tells them to do, and paying their taxes on time and just never ever really getting above the breadline. That is what they want, and that's the slaves that they're talking about, folks. It's not going to be obvious slavery. You're not going to be wearing chains and cuffs and being hoarded out to crack rocks every day. Different type of slavery, folks. But that's what they want, and even that is going to depend on your compliance. So stop complying, folks. It's pretty simple. Anyway, I just keep going off on more topics, so I'm going to leave it there for now, and I'll look forward to speaking to you again soon. Thank you to all the people who help and who support and who share the message. Please take very good care until we speak next, and I'll look forward to doing that soon. In Lakesh.